Sean Diddy Combs.
For Diddy, Sean Combs.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs.
In 2024, Sean Diddy Combs hit the headlines for numerous allegations surrounding rape, sexual assault, and sex trafficking, with no less than 7 lawsuits attached to his name. However, Diddy could get embroiled in a criminal case involving one of the biggest unsolved cases in America, the murder of rap icon Tupac Shakur. The shooting took place on the night of September 7, 1996. That evening, Tupac had been with Death Row Records manager Marion Suge Knight as they attended a boxing match in Las Vegas, Nevada. Shakur briefly returned to the Luxor Hotel after the fight, where he then left to head to Knight's Club 662 to perform a charity show. Riding in a BMW 750, Shakur and Knight had been stopped shortly after 11 p.m. for driving without number plates and playing music too loudly. 10 minutes later, at 11:15 p.m., a white Cadillac pulled alongside Shakur's BMW as it drove East Flamingo Row. As the Cadillac stopped, its rear windows lowered and gunshots were fired. In total, 4 shots were from a Glock 22 pistol. The shots pierced through the back of the vehicles, hitting Shakur in the leg and chest. One of the bullets that lodged into Tupac's chest hit his right lung directly. Knight was also injured, suffering head injuries from bullet fragmentation. Instead of waiting for help, Knight drove the vehicle directly after the shooting. The BMW suffered a flat tire in the shooting, but Knight reached the strip. Knight was then stopped outside the MGM by police who saw their vehicle's state. After seeing Tupac's injuries, they alerted paramedics to his condition, and Shakur was rushed to the hospital. He was initially placed in a coma due to his critical condition and guarded by death row security as he lay in the ICU. Despite medical treatment, it would not be enough. Tupac died from his injuries 6 days later on September 13, 1996. At the time of Shakur's death, Tupac had become the biggest star to emerge out of California's West Coast rap scene. He was the poster boy for the movement, and it put him primarily at odds with the New York-based East Coast rap scene. This put him in direct competition with New York's biggest rap star, Christopher "Biggie" Wallace, and his manager, Sean Diddy Combs. The two scenes slowly emerged into a twisted blood feud, where disputes between both sides became closely associated with assault, crime, and murder. And Tupac, alongside his manager Suge Knight, found themselves the target of those on the East Coast scene. This came as Biggie became a household name in the mid-90s, threatening to usurp Tupac as one of the biggest rappers in the industry. It came after LA-based Death Row Records had found huge commercial success with the popularity of gangster rap in the early 90s. Death Row, founded by Knight and ex-NWA member Dr. Dre, had been responsible for launching the careers of iconic rappers such as Snoop Dogg and Tupac himself. However, it was Combs creating his label Bad Boy Records in 1993 that gave the New York scene its outlet for success. Bad Boy's instant success with Biggie, aka Notorious B.I.G., put them in a direct collision course with Death Row. A course that was anything but peaceful as the rivalry intensified. One where the first incident saw Tupac himself caught in the crossfire. The real catalyst of the rivalry began in 1994, following a shooting at Manhattan-based recording studio Quad Studios. On November 30th, 1994, Tupac flew to New York to record a song with Tyrone Little Sean Wilkins in a bid to raise money to pay for legal fees involving a trial for sex abuse and weaponry. As Shakur entered the studio, 2 masked men arrived bearing guns. When Tupac refused to go to the ground, they attempted to rob him of his jewelry, an estimated worth of $40,000. After resisting the attackers, he was shot 5 times in the leg and chest. A few months later, Shakur recalled the incident in an interview with Vibe magazine, explaining more about the incident. In the interview, he explicitly stated that the attack was orchestrated weeks in advance. He believed that it was music producers Jaquise, Haitian Jack, Agnot, and James Jimmy Henchman Roseman who initially set things up. Both Agnot and Roseman had ties with Combs at the time, and it was Roseman himself who suggested to Wilkins to use Shakur for his song. He then alleged that Roseman worked with Combs and Uptown Records founder Andre Harrell to set up the robbery. Shakur suggested that they were involved in the shooting, saying, "I noticed that nobody was looking at me. Andre Harrell wouldn't look at me. Puffy was standing back too. I knew Puffy. He knew how much stuff I had done for Biggie before he came out." Decades later, an expose published by Rolling Stone doubled down on Shakur's feelings, highlighting the initial friendly relationship between Biggie and Tupac. In the May 2024 article, Bad Boy Records co-founder Kirk Burroughs insinuated that Combs was jealous of the initial friendship between the two rappers, saying that someone was sitting on the sidelines jealous, alluding to Diddy. Whilst Shakur recovered from gunshot wounds to his leg and body before being incarcerated for the sexual abuse case in 1995, Biggie released the song Who Shot Ya? The record, a B-side on the February 1995 single Big Papa, references a rivalry between two drug dealers before claiming that one got the drop on the other. Despite no direct references to Shakur, the Death Row artist took it as a jab over the New York shooting. In particular, the lines, "Come here, open your mouth. Didn't I tell you not to with me? Can't talk with a gun in your mouth, huh?" Later on, Burroughs gave more details about the song's release, stating that Combs pressured Biggie to write certain songs in an attempt to fuel the growing rivalry between Bad Boy and Death Row. Despite the nondescript references and Wallace's multiple denials of it being a jab at Tupac, Who Shot Ya was seen as a proverbial catalyst in ramping up the animosity between both rap scenes. After taking the release as a diss against his name, Shakur responded with a track of his own, Hit 'Em Up, in 1996. In the song, Shakur directly mentions the song release, stating, "Who shot me? But you punks didn't finish. Now you're about to feel the wrath of a menace." The boilover from the New York shooting continued over several months, and once again was on public display at the 1995 Source Awards. On August 3, 1995, the ceremony was held in New York and had many key players from both Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records in attendance. During the early portion of the show, Death Row President Suge Knight spoke to the crowd and openly mocked Bad Boy Records, in particular, Combs. In his speech, Knight said, "Any artist out there that wants to be an artist and a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be in all the videos, all on the records, dancing, come to Death Row." Knight's comments drew huge boos from the audience, given that many were local to the New York scene. More animosity would build later in the night when Dr. Dre won Producer of the Year, sparking more boos from the crowd. This caused Death Row artist Snoop Dogg to taunt the crowd, asking, "Y'all don't love us? Well, let it be known then. We don't give a... We all know y'all East Coast. We all know where we at." As the tensions grew, it would be Combs himself who seemingly played peacemaker during the night. When he took to the stage, he openly said, "This East and West, that needs to stop. So give it up for everybody from the East and the West that won tonight. One love." However, this did little to ease the tensions, especially as Combs and Knight would be key witnesses to a fatal shooting in Atlanta later that month. The incident happened on August 28, 1995, when both producers were at a birthday party for producer Jermaine Dupri. As the night drew to a close outside the Platinum House nightclub, there was an altercation between two individuals. One was Big Jake Robles, close friend of Suge Knight. It's alleged that he got involved with Anthony Wolf Johnson, a friend of Combs and a part of his security detail. As the altercation escalated, a fracas ensued and Robles was shot dead by an unknown assailant. Multiple claims have emerged about what happened that night in Atlanta. Dupree himself has said he believed that it was Johnson who shot Robles. However, multiple members of Combs' entourage have claimed that wasn't the case. After Robles passed away, Knight blamed Diddy for the death of his friend. Following the huge animosity between Death Row and Bad Boy, both parties had a rivalry that had turned into a blood feud. This was seemingly not on Shakur's mind as he headed to Las Vegas on September 7, 1996. The plan was for Shakur and Suge Knight to watch the world heavyweight title fight between Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand Hotel. Part of Shakur's entourage was Trayvon Lane, a close friend of Knight's, who was also involved in gang activity in Los Angeles. A few weeks prior, Lane had been the victim of an attempted robbery in LA by rival gangsters, including Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. As Shakur, Lane, and Knight passed through the MGM Grand lobby after the fight, Lane spotted Anderson in the lobby and pointed him out to Shakur. Shakur then confronted Anderson and punched him to the ground. This started a melee between both parties, which was then broken up by hotel security. After the incident, Shakur was taken to his room at the Luxor before leaving on that fateful journey. Anderson was not alone in Vegas that night. He was accompanied by his uncle, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. Davis was a prominent figure within LA gang culture, and with deep ties to the Compton Crips, a rival gang of the Bloods who had close ties with Death Row and Suge Knight. After the shooting, many people suspected Anderson to be responsible. At the time, many felt that the act was a direct retaliation for Shakur assaulting him in the hotel lobby. However, this was ruled out by the Las Vegas Police Department in 1997, as they believed that the time that passed between the incidents was too soon for Anderson to be the perpetrator. Few witnesses were able to give police much information about those involved in the Cadillac where the shots were fired from. The investigation hinged on partial testimony from Shakur's friend, Yafu Yaki Gaddafi Fula, who was responsible for identifying the white Cadillac. However, Fula himself was shot and killed in November 1996 in an incident in his flat, leaving no witnesses to the shooting itself. For decades, the identity of those responsible for killing Tupac remained unknown. Rumors for the shooting ran rife with two strong theories emerging: the result of an LA gang feud or the involvement of Bad Boy Records. Some theories even intertwined the two. These rumors ran wild despite Las Vegas police never revealing a prime suspect. Numerous sources tried to pin the hit immediately on Biggie, despite him not being present in Las Vegas that night. He was later cleared of any wrongdoings thanks to invoices showing that he was recording in New York at the time. Most focused on Anderson due to the previous assault and affiliation with rival gangs to Death Row Records. However, any chances to investigate Anderson were curtailed in 1998 when he was killed in a gang shooting in Los Angeles over a drug deal gone wrong. Before his death, Anderson reiterated that he wasn't involved in the shooting in an interview with Vibe magazine, stating, "I wish they could find who did it so I can prove my innocence." Plenty of people would launch investigations into the death of Tupac, often drawing the same conclusions, that it was Anderson's uncle Dwayne Davis who was the man behind the shooting. However, very few could legally put Davis at the scene or his reasons behind it. However, all this changed on September 29, 2023, when Davis was arrested by the Las Vegas Police Department for the murder of Shakur. The arrest came following several raids on properties linked to Davis and his acquaintances in several months. The arrest of Davis came as little surprise given his long-term association with the incident and Anderson on the night of the shooting. And even by his admissions, Davis had put himself at the scene of the crime. Davis would eventually enter a not guilty plea after being charged with his involvement in the shooting. He was eventually placed on house arrest on April 23, 2024, with a trial scheduled for November 2024. Whilst Davis has been officially charged with the murder, it isn't the charges that brought him under the microscope, rather his reasons for doing so. With Keith D's trial set, many media outlets jumped upon interviews with the gangster in the past. Perhaps the most damning was a set of leaked interviews with Davis when he was under investigation for drug crimes in 2008 by the LAPD. In a series of tapes known as the Keith D tapes, Davis made numerous claims, including that Sean Combs hired him to kill Tupac. The tapes were put together and released by former LAPD Greg Kading, who was present in the interviews and had been involved with the fatal shooting of Biggie in 1997. During the discussions, Davis goes on in great detail, surmising that he first met Combs at an awards party in 1992 before working with him to provide a vehicle for the Usher single, "Can I Get With It?" He then goes on to elaborate how the discussion went down. In one excerpt, Davis tells detectives, "When he told me at the Greenblatts," referring to a meeting about taking out Shakur. When the detectives ask who he was referring to, Davis just says, "Puff." Davis then goes on to say they wanted $1 million to kill Shakur and Knight. Later in the same conversation, Davis goes into great detail, mentioning that the plan was put together. In the tapes, he says, "He took me downstairs and he's like, 'Man, I want to get rid of them dudes, man.' I was like, 'Go wipe their ass out quick, man. It's nothing.'" Davis ultimately revealed that the original plan was just to take out Knight. However, the release of Hit 'Em Up caused Combs to add Shakur to the job. In the tapes, Davis said he added the boy on after he made a record. The tapes also saw Davis reveal that Combs never paid him for the job, essentially causing him to turn on the music mogul. He reiterated this by saying, "If he would have just given us half the money, I would have stayed strong." Whilst the tapes were leaked as early as 2011, they were added to the court case against Davis in January 2024 and were accepted as evidence as part of the trial itself.